Good evening. Welcome to Dodgeville High School's auditorium. I know it's not the perfect night to come out and listen to this, but I think you'll be happy to see what's going to be presented tonight. Just really good things for Dodgeville. So thank you for being here. We appreciate it. I'm just going to go through a couple of things, and then I'm going to shut up and let the important people behind me share some other information. So here's the agenda for tonight. I'll talk a little bit, tell you a little bit about what we're going to do. So after we go through our presentation, we will do some closing remarks and then allow you to come up on stage here, look at some of the materials that we have up here, some of the handouts. We have some questions and we'll go through all that, but we encourage you to stay as long as you want. We want to be mindful of your time, but yet love for you to come up and engage with the fine folks from HGA and Carrie Portz, and Carol I'm sure will be up here, and anyone from the library that might want to add some details. So please come up and ask questions and look at what we have. So after I get done talking, Carrie will talk about library needs and benefit. We'll go over project overview, exterior review, interior review, and so on. So I'm going to start here. For those of you that were here back in December, I talked about our comprehensive plan. And the reason I bring it up is because it all ties into this discussion. When the comprehensive plan was done, they talked about different things in here that the community was wanting and desiring based on the feedback from those that were a part of the focus group. So at the last meeting, I talked about opportunities and shared with you some of the opportunities that are going on in Dodgeville. And then I talked to you about some of the collaboration that's required to make all these things happen. And I talked about the school and the county and the city all working together. And I talked about how important it is for you as the citizens of this community to be active participants in what's going on. So for those of you that are here, thank you very much for being here. The one thing that I shared right away, and I'm going to share now, is what came from that comprehensive plan was a vision statement. And I'll read it, even though you can read it, I'm sure. Dodgeville provides a supportive community for families, business, and education, working hand in hand to develop opportunities at the heart of it all. So if you recall, I had shared this beautiful book that I hold in my hand. And there was many things that came from this comprehensive plan, and they talked about 4 different initiatives, and then talked about different themes from the plan. And one of the themes was the importance of park systems and public spaces. And I'll just read one of the last sentences. I'll read you this paragraph because it'll fit better. The park system is expansive and a major asset to the city of Dodgeville, and regional parks have the ability to increase current residents' health and well-being and to attract visitors, future residents, and new business. Likewise, strong support for the city library reflects a community that enjoys coming together and values lifelong learning. And I think that's why we're here today, is because we're finally at this point. The reason you're here tonight, looking at this new building project for a library, is from collaboration and opportunities. Many hands make light work, probably for 15, 20 years, maybe longer. I'm sure Carrie will add maybe some details on that, and I'm sure if I could bring Vicki up here, she'd even share even farther. But there's been a lot of people that have spent a lot of time trying to get a new library here in Dodgeville. And it's through that collaboration of working together and working with the city that we're here today. But it's also because of opportunities. And the opportunity was the flexible facilities grant that we applied for and received $4.25 million. So it was an opportunity, and thanks to all the people that have been so dedicated to getting a new library, and a contract grant writer that we brought in to help us in our community. that we were able to get that $4.25 million and bring this whole project to fruition. So it's a number of things that have come together through collaboration and opportunity that we're here tonight. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to introduce Carrie Portz, who is our library director. Carrie started, I believe, a month after I was elected, and so we're both newbies here and being thrown into a lot of projects here in the community, and it's a wonderful thing. Is that right, Carrie? But I can tell you, and I'm sure the library staff and other city staff would feel the same way, that Carrie's been a great addition to our community and to our city staff and to our library. So without further ado, Carrie Portz.
Nobody has ever said without further ado, Carrie Portz. Thank you. And thank you for coming out tonight. It is not great weather, and I'm so grateful that you're here and that you want to learn more about the library project. I'll tell you just a little bit about myself. Since I am new, I started in July, and I most recently was the school librarian in the Frommelt School District. Prior to that, I was the director in the Spring Green Community Library, and I was in the Barneveld Library when they did their expansion in 2015. And I am super excited and lucky to be here and do this expansion with you guys in Dodgeville. And I know most of you you're members of the choir, essentially, but for those of you who haven't been to the library for a while, you might be wondering, why do we need this library? Isn't the library we have good enough? Well, we've been really busy. We average 134 visits a day. Those visitors are doing lots of things in our library. Of course, they're checking out books. They're using the internet. They're doing the print, scan, copy, fax that we do. They're also attending their own meetings in our meeting rooms. This is a big growth area for us. We have a 20% increase in demand on our meeting rooms over last year. But even more than that, we have an average of 32 people per library program. And that sounds like a lot, but most of them have much more. Our children's story times and our summer children's programs have much more than 32 people attending. And so that begs the question, what do we do with all these people in this really small library? So we take our show on the road. We do a lot of programs down in city council chambers. We do programs in our little satellite we opened 3 blocks north of the library. We call it the Library Annex. We do programs at the Ridgeway Volunteer Library, and we hold programs at Live Pavilion, and of course sometimes we just cram people into the library or have them come after hours. And if the library is crowded for the people, it's also crowded for the stuff that we deal in. The Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction has library standards of service based on municipal populations, and for every one of those metrics that is related to space, we are below basic in the service to our community. So this is a little chart of some of the things we do at the library, some of the things we check out. And the column, the right-hand column, is the number of items we should add to reach the basic level of service for our community. So for example, the second row where it says collection total all formats, that's like everything that you might check out at the library. We have about 30,000 of these items, but we should have 12 to 15,000 more just to have a basic level of service for a community of our size. And yes, Barry mentioned we've been at this a long time. In fact, the first time somebody mentioned that the library was full was in 2004. And in 2014, it took about another 10 years for it to get serious. The library board hired a consultant to do a space needs analysis, and at that time we were critically overcrowded. 10 years ago, we were critically overcrowded and needed 20,000 square feet. And we held a lot of community listening sessions at that time. We interviewed architects and we're working with the city to try to figure out how we could make this library happen. In fact, we hired HGA at that time. They've been with us a long time. I think Kevin was at the original presentation. And the library board and the city council were really impressed with HGA because they had done so much research and community engagement even before they came to the presentation. They had gone downtown and talked to community members and business leaders and found out, what do you want in the library? What do you want in the community? And that really impressed the library board and the city council. And I think, we've been working on this for so long that we've had so many opportunities for community engagement. We've had multiple surveys, we've had multiple open houses where we got feedback on what people wanted in their library and in their community. And I think you're going to see that we listened to that feedback and incorporated it into the design that you're going to see in a few minutes. And I'm saying we, but really I need to honor the great Vicki Stengel, because I started in July and Vicki worked a lot. Yeah. And I kind of lucked out, but Vicki did all the legwork, for sure. But you're going to see the feedback that we received over these 10 years reflected in the design, from little things to big things. Like the big thing being the exterior materials are primarily going to be brick, because we want to honor the downtown and the historic district and fit in that space. All the way to things like just incorporating local art and having space for art displays that rotate and lots of opportunity to showcase our local talent. And there's many more examples in the design that I'm sure you will see. So what will be the benefit with this new library? Of course, Barry mentioned it wouldn't be possible without this flexible facilities grant. This was a statewide grant. 100 communities in the state applied for it, and 38 were selected. We were one of the lucky ones that got full funding. We got the full $4.25 million. And this project really wouldn't be possible without that funding. And the grant requires that we have certain requirements to get it, to receive the grant. And so it helps drive some of our definite goals and services that we want to provide in the new library. So we have to improve our broadband access and improve the way that we help with healthcare monitoring in the community. We also are going to support workforce development and remote learning in more robust ways. And we're doing this by investing into the infrastructure of the building. So we're building community spaces, study rooms, telehealth rooms that provide spaces for this kind of activity, but also the infrastructure like the technology and training for our staff so that we can help support all of these services. And we're collaborating with services like JobPod and the AARP and other community partners to help make all of this happen. It is kind of great that all of those goals and requirements for the grant tie so nicely into the comprehensive plan that the city developed in 2017. This is the strategic initiative, sort of like the summary of the comprehensive plan, and all of the items that are circled are items where the library project hits that initiative. And I'm just going to mention 3. 1, beautiful spaces for people to gather in, support for educational opportunities in the community, both for adults and for kids, and then to just help develop an overall culture of lifelong learning and wellness in Dodgeville. And so some of the things that are helping to drive this project are things that we're already doing, and some are new. We already are providing access to information and digital resources. We're just going to be able to do it better. We're already helping bridge the digital divide for people. There's a lot of people in our community who need to access necessary services and conduct business online, and they don't have the equipment or the skills to be able to manage that. And those services are always changing and always requiring new skills to be able to do them online. And so we help with that. We help with everything from helping people log into their email when they forgot their password to more complicated things like helping somebody load documents that support their insurance claim or file for government assistance programs. And we do this kind of thing all the time, and we can do it better with more space and better infrastructure. I missed a couple of things, just don't get excited. I'm convinced that this new library is going to be just an incredible dynamic hub and a gathering space, and it's really going to improve the opportunity for social connection and the quality of life for people in the Dodgeville area. It's going to be a great place where you're going to want to say, hey, friend, meet me at the library. And it's a place where you're going to meet new friends at the library. It's going to become your third place. And if you haven't heard that term, third place, it's a term that refers to a place that's not your home and it's not your work, but it's a place that you're always welcome. You can be yourself. You can hang out and socialize. You can hang out and not socialize. You can spend the whole day at the library and you don't have to buy anything. It's safe and welcoming, and it's a place for everybody to connect and find support. And I think it's going to become the heart of the community. So, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Alabach. I'm with HGA Architects. My first thanks goes to all of you for braving the snow and the weather and coming out tonight. We do appreciate this opportunity to share a little bit about our current planning on the library and also give you an opportunity to ask some questions, to come up and take a look. And we would love nothing more for you to just stay a few minutes and talk with us and share some of your dreams and visions for the library as well. We want to get as quickly as possible to some of the imagery, so I'm going to try to keep my portion short. But I did want to say that it's been, as was mentioned, I was at that original interview back in 2014 and began working with Vicki, and it has been just a delight working with the library staff, with the team of people that are running your library and running your city. I can't imagine a more caring, passionate group of people that have helped us greatly along the way. And I think a lot of that also comes from community engagement sessions that we did over those last 10 years, where we were gathering some of your thoughts and your ideas. And again, hopefully that can continue tonight. I want to talk, Carrie mentioned some key drivers. I want to mention some key design goals, some things that you'll see in the design and you'll certainly see in the library, in the new library that's developed. It's important to note, I think everyone knows, but the library is going to take over the lower level, what's currently the City Hall, the administration offices. They'll be moving out, so the library will have both levels, and that gets us most of the way there, but not all the way there for that need. So there is also an addition that is planned to, again, get all of those space needs met. And Kim and Erica will share a little bit more about the plans. But a couple of things really wanted to highlight here that are on our minds every day as we're designing the library. And one, that it needs to be welcoming. It wants to be a place that from the very street invites you to come in. That's an important goal. There'll be a community center, a community room in the library right at the very front. And again, that wants to, again, hopefully be, along with the library, part of that heart of the community. We wanted to have that improved street presence, that you can't drive into town, not see the library, and again, not want to be there, be in it. The new building is going to, again, dramatically improve accessibility. So much better restroom facilities, much better access throughout the whole building. And we also need to unite the library, because right now, city administration and the library are kind of in two separate worlds. There's a stair that connects them, but not much else. And now we need that to work together as one and feel like it's one important place to be. So an important goal for us there. And then just expand the opportunity for programs. There's so much more that the talented staff that are in the library could be doing if they just had a little more space. So giving them those opportunities. Carrie already mentioned that need to improve wireless access, also need to improve security. And then lastly, staff, I think, have been making do with the space they have, but it's certainly time to improve that. Lots going on right now. I'm going to talk about schedule in just a moment, but all the things that are currently being worked on and thought through, everything from certainly the architecture, but we're working through the interior design. Erica's going to share a little bit more about that. But lighting, civil engineering. Today, I hope that they were supposed to do soil borings today, so they were checking how far down the rock is along that street where the new addition will go. But mechanical, electrical, plumbing, all those kinds of things are being developed and worked on right now. Talk just a little bit about schedule. So the design is not done, and that's why we wanted to have this meeting, an opportunity for you to see it and share some of your thoughts and comments. There is still time to evolve, to change, to incorporate. So please do stay around, ask some questions, let us know what you're thinking. But we're in what's called a design development phase. There's still several more months of completing the drawings. So again, we're still fluid. What you're seeing tonight is a moment in time. It's where the design is today. It is not finished. So again, feel free to offer your comments and suggestions. Our target is to go out to bid in March, end of March, and then to begin construction in June of this year. And part of the reason, this is a pretty accelerated schedule, and part of the reason is that that wonderful grant also required that construction must start before July 1st. So we've got to finish documents, get bids in, and start construction here before that deadline requirement of July 1st. So, and then we're looking at about 14 months of construction, so targeting completion of the building a year later, September of 2026. And then we'll do some library move-in, and we're targeting, again, an opening back to the community for the library in late September of 26. So that's where we're headed. But now we get to the good part. We're going to start, Kim is going to talk to you about the exterior, and then Erica will follow with the interior spaces. Kim?
Right. Hi everyone, my name is Kim Workman. I'm an architect at HGA. So this is a site that you're probably all really familiar with. So this is the current library location. So you can see the library in orange right here, and this plan is facing north. So we've got the Quick Trip right here, Iowa Street, Fountain Street, Union Street, and then Division all the way to the north. So just to orient everyone, currently when you go to the library, you're probably coming in off Iowa Street, or off Fountain Street, going through the parking, entering the library on the west side of the building, and then exiting onto Iowa Street. So we are doing a few things that will change that. So just so I'm orienting you correctly. All right, so and then currently the entrance you can see right here on the west space, that's to the library. There's a lot of steps and ramps going up to that. It's a pretty steep site. And then down on this side is the entry to City Hall, which we'll also be utilizing as part of the library. So now looking at moving into the future of the new library. So what we're proposing to do is add a library addition on the west side of the site, so covering up that existing parking area and bringing the parking all the way to the north of the site. So in this plan, you'd be coming off of Iowa into the parking, and then parking into your spot, entering the building on the north side, and then proceeding out to Union Street when you exit the building. We also have that ability of utilizing that entry off of the current City Hall entrance for part of the lower level of the library. All right. So this first view we're going to look at is looking at it from Iowa Street. So as if you're a car driving down Iowa Street looking towards the building. So like Carrie mentioned, we are trying to respect the historic district by using brick as our main material and looking to some of the historic buildings along Iowa Street. We were seeing a lot of cream and light colored brick utilized throughout some of those buildings. We also saw this rhythm of storefronts along Iowa Street that we wanted to respect as well with some of our detailing we're doing along Iowa Street. So entering off of Iowa Street, you can see a large open vestibule with a metal wood wrapping soffit around the exterior of the building. We're also proposing a plaza at the front of the building that would be utilized for patrons and people visiting the library or using the community room, which you can see straight through here. Also looking at strategic ways for doing signage along the north and the west facade. So when you're driving by in the car, you can see Dodgeville Public Library pretty prominently and know it's a welcoming place to go and read a book or check out a book. So once you're going along Iowa Street, this is the rhythm we're looking at for those storefronts to mimic what's going on in the historic district. So we have these smaller storefronts that, and a break in the facade to kind of break it up and make it feel like the smaller storefronts that are along the majority of Iowa Street. And then that back side of the building where the existing City Hall entrance is would be primarily an entrance to the children's area of the library, but you can see a nice green space where children or book clubs could come outside and meet using picnic tables or reusing repurposed lumber from the site and the trees that will be taken down as pieces of site furnishings for children to play on and to utilize as an extra space for the library. So like I mentioned before, the primary material on the new addition is brick. This is also what the primary material is on the existing building. And then looking at using a metal material at the exterior, at the roof edge, and a wood look metal material at the roof soffit. And then also similar to the existing building, using a hardy fiber cement plank siding underneath the windows and at these punched openings, and then having a cast-in-place concrete wall that wraps around the building as a retaining wall and a buffer to the landscape. All right, so that's it for the outside, and Erica is going to take us inside the building.
Good evening. So my name is Erica Fredrickson. I'm a senior interior designer with HGA Architects, and I also specialize in library planning and design. I think I've said this to a few people now, but I actually started in February of 2015, and this is one of the first projects that I touched starting at HGA, starting the portion of my career at HGA. So it was actually feels kind of like almost like an anniversary celebration in a way, I guess, to be at this point and actually be able to help bring this project to a tangible future for Dodgeville. But as far as the interior review, I think a lot of what you're not going to see tonight and some things that have already been mentioned is really taking a lot of the metrics in terms of, what does the future library need to house and maintain. Also thinking about what those spaces and how big those spaces need to be, and then combining that kind of with that vision to really fuse that together. So there's a lot of hard work and study that's been done to make sure that these spaces that are going to be curated inside of the library are of the correct size and will help fulfill those needs. So we've done a lot of that kind of investigative and research work already kind of up to date. So right now you get to see tonight is more of the pretty pictures or more of that actual design development as we mentioned. So starting to move into those more items that relate to actual design of the interior architecture and the palette. So as far as the interior review, we'll kind of take a look at it in 3 phases here, looking at the interior plans themselves and give you some orientation to those plans and a little bit of a virtual tour. And then also talk a little bit about palette and kind of what drives the inspiration for choosing finishes for a building like this. And don't worry, we have both the exterior and interior palettes up here, or our current palettes. So do please take a minute to come up and ask those questions and take a look at the materials. And then last but not least, for the interior view, we also have some of those same renderings to look at. So starting with the main level, one thing again that we, like Kim did, we want to make sure you're oriented and understand the kind of where's the new and where's the existing or addition to the space. So the red dash box that you see on the plan is actually the existing building, and that large red arrow is where the entry to the existing building is today. So if you can imagine that stair that's just adjacent to it, that is the existing stair that we plan on reusing, and same thing with the elevator. So again, taking in some options to make sure that we're preserving or retaining the existing when we can to maybe save some dollars or be more efficient with the space. Another thing with that is also understanding kind of how that changes the sequence of space. So when we start to think about the future space, and I'll move to the next one so you can see it a little bit clearer without that dash box. Now we have that entry and vestibule that is facing towards the north. So that's going to be at the top of the plan here. And that material return or book drop is accessible from the exterior just adjacent to that. After you pass through that vestibule, you're going to enter into the lobby space, And why there's kind of that secondary lobby space is that allows that community room that's shown in yellow adjacent to it to be used after hours. So when the library is not in primary use, then we have a secured vestibule or lobby space that can access that community room shown in yellow. And then if not, that community room can also be used during normal operation hours for the library. The community room, again, shown in that corner, that's where we're getting some of those wonderful views and access to the views back out to the street and that kind of plaza that Kim mentioned. That also, right now, we are showing it in an orientation that has a lot of seating, kind of similar to tonight, more of in that auditorium style. But the idea here is that that's a very highly flexible room with tables and chairs that can serve a lot of purposes or a lot of different meeting types, and has a wonderful storage room to hold all of that good furniture. And when it's not in use, also thinking about opportunities to maybe infuse some lounge seating too, so that that can act as an extension of the library space when a program is not happening. Okay, now moving through those doors that connect the community room to the blue space, which is actually the adult space. So that's comprising a majority of that new addition, really trying to utilize the center of that space for a majority of the shelving. So you think about that density of the shelving and the collections, using the center of that space and allowing the furniture to be the thing that kind of promenades around the perimeter. Again, so that you have those kind of cozy alcoves along the window that you can grab a book and sit down and enjoy both the daylight and the wonderful views. And then, not to forget, here in the center we have, right off of the lobby is this orange, what we're calling the marketplace. As a part of that is the service desk, which has great sightlines to, again, that entry, opportunity to display new material, and also opportunities to have either library information, art that could be, again, rotational displays that could be housed in this area, also community information, so not thinking about just the library as the heart of the community, but also what the community can bring to the table too, as far as anything it wants to display. And then as we're really thinking too, I know we'll see it in some of the views, but this space in orange is really, that becomes a connector for the building. So when you're entering from that vestibule and standing in this lobby, you're going to have some wonderful vantage points kind of through this space and seeing all the way through this kind of connection point, which connects the existing building to this new addition. And then moving into what was the existing building, we have here we go. The Info Commons is what we're calling it, which is shown in green. This is hosting a lot of those internet computers for that space. So thinking about some of those needs in terms of the grant. So thinking about access to broadband and good wireless or internet connection helps serving that purpose. And then also on the other side, shown in blue, is what we're calling a business center. So that also is an extension or kind of support of that, having more space to sprawl out and use areas for your own devices like laptops. And then in the center, we're actually proposing taking out a portion of the floor so that you have a direct connectivity to the lower floor, or what will be the children's space that we'll talk about in a minute. And then to the south of this plan, along the edge in red, are a lot of the staff spaces. So offices, staff workroom and storage, but then also finding some more of those enclosed patron spaces like study rooms and a telehealth room that again helps support that flexible grant. And then the light blue again reappearing in this corner, preserving space for local history. So not only some of the material, but also the artifacts and wonderful things that we need to preserve and help display in that space. And then as we move into the light purple, one of the things that we identified as a program need was also defining a young adult space. So where do the teens and tweens have that space to come and be a part of the library? So that's what we're trying to achieve by the areas in purple. And then up towards the very top, again, you're seeing a little bit more red. This is, again, more staff space, but thinking about more of the sorting and deliveries and break space, as well as some like staff and toilet rooms. And then also in the center at the top, up here, we have more, again, variation of those types of meeting spaces. So a large meeting room, a small meeting room, and another telehealth room that help comprise this main floor. Now moving to the lower level, the majority of this lower level under that addition is going to be unexcavated space. So what you're seeing here on the left-hand side of the screen is actually hatched to show that it's more the actual site and it's not carved out for people space. There are some opportunities to think about some of that space at the end here to serve for more support needs like maintenance or mechanical as we start developing and understanding what makes most sense for those purposes. But the primary function in orienting yourself again through that current City Hall entrance right here. We have another material return or book drop right next to that. And then immediately upon entry to that space, you're seeing a service desk. Back and a little bit to the left is the same stair and elevator from upstairs that would bring you down to this floor. And again, as we mentioned, the majority of this floor is really serving the children's function. But it's broken up into a few different areas, being the story time room here in the bottom left, a more children's and literacy and play area in the bottom right, and then a density of the collection towards more of the deeper part of the space that maybe has a little bit less access to that entry. So that's more of that browsing space for the children's collection and middle grade collections. We also have staff space for the Friends Library and a few offices down here to help support their needs and give them adjacency on this floor as well. So please, again, feel free to come up. I know that's a lot to kind of quickly run through, but hopefully gives you that virtual tour. But now, understanding kind of how that lays out, now thinking about how finishes apply to a space like that, one of the inspiration ideas that we have discussed is really the history and also the legacy of industry in Dodgeville as an inspiration. And that really brings to mind some really beautiful and colorful imagery, both with a historic context, but also understanding, what is the, again, primary industry of the space, both historically and over time, and then taking some of what we're seeing as far as colors, but also patterns and textures that we start to see repeated in some of these imageries, and how can we translate those to finishes. So taking that a step farther, we developed that into an actual palette here, which you'll see showing options for carpet and resilient flooring there in the center, and then showing options for conceptual first passes at what we could do for paint and accent paints, as well as corresponding fabrics that could apply to the furniture within the space. So on the left-hand side, you'll see something that's a little bit more desaturated that may make more sense for an accent palette for the main floor. Whereas on the right-hand side here, you see a lot more vibrancy in those colors, which would translate more so for the lower level and the children's to give just a little bit more energy. But all in all, trying to see some cohesion across these floors, so we're not picking wildly different colors just for different areas, but giving you a very nice and new palette to furnish the space. And the exciting part of seeing how it actually looks in the 3D space. So right upon entry from that lobby into that marketplace, looking through that connector that we talked about and seeing the service desk is the marketplace view. So this allows you to, again, stand right inside that entry, see some opportunity for that new material to be displayed here in the center, opportunities for library information display on the side, or perhaps it's the art display here on the right-hand side. And then the opportunity, again, to have that service desk very visible directly upon entry, and another point of material return in the desk, but also seeing directly through and all the way out to the exterior from the other end. And the depths of this image, you can start to see more of that collection and the density of the adult collection, and that would be, again, in that new addition space. Not to mention, too, also thinking about variety of finishes. Things like carpet might seem a little bit more obvious as far as acoustics and making sure that those are of commercial grade, but also thinking about opportunities like ceilings to bring in acoustic materials like felt baffles that could add different textures or potentially different colors to the space as well. Next, moving over to the business center, which is on the one side of the opening and looking towards the info commons. We have a series of furnishings right here in the front. And then the opening just beyond, so showing that picket railing around the perimeter. And then potential for some artwork along this kind of solid wall here. And on the opposite side of that wall is where we were showing an opportunity for a laptop bar or an extended table that you could bring your own devices and work along this opening. And then we're seeing some computers in the far depths of this image. A density of shelving for the young adult space, which would then be a little bit off to your right here. And then into the small meeting room here with the green painted wall. We do again have these images printed and on boards, so if you get a chance to take a look a little bit closer, you'll really even see back into that marketplace and how we've created these wraps that kind of create portals to that space, or kind of give that definition of when you're entering from that new addition into this existing space. And then last but not least, we have the lower level focusing on the children's space. So you can see that vestibule here in the center of where you would enter, the service desk in the foreground, opportunity for more children's computers and internet computers on this level, some offices that would be just immediately behind the wall over here, and then looking into the depths of this image, that children's play and literacy area, and then off to the right, getting just a little bit of a snapshot into that story time room and an opportunity of where some of those programs could be held on the lower level and not need to utilize the community room upstairs. So again, please take your time, come on up when we have concluded, and we will give you a better, I guess, one-on-one of the views and palette. With that, I will turn it over for some closing remarks.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing all these wonderful pictures. How many people out there are excited about what they're seeing? You can clap, you got it. These are the assets that we need in our community. So obviously we've thrown a lot of information at you, and as all of the speakers that have talked up here, there's lots of ways that you can come up here and provide some input and look over things. You know, we have a lot of building projects going on in this community because of different things that have led to spaces needing to find new homes. So as Kevin talked about, and I'm sure you figured out by now, that this will take over the space that is currently used by City Hall. So in the meantime, new City Hall will be moving up to the Armory building. Is everyone familiar where the Armory building is? Up near Halata Motors, also near Walgreens and the Dollar General. That is also the location that we will be moving the library to temporarily. So we have a lot of work ahead of us, as Kevin alluded to. July 1st, correct, was the start of construction. Fingers crossed. We need to get moved into some new spaces. So obviously, all of these things play into the costs, play into costs to people's property taxes, and so on. So I'm going to briefly talk about that, and also talk a little bit about the costs associated with this project. So originally, the cost that we were starting from before we kind of got our feet on the ground and working with HGA was roughly about, and I'm going to do some rounding here because it's such a moving target right now until we get things more figured out, but around $9 million. As we've worked forward and looked at all the costs and worked with HGA as they've been putting together these beautiful designs for this facility, that cost is extended up to about $10.7 million. So you're going, oh, how are we going to pay for that? Well, some things to consider and things to think about is that there's probably about $1.3 million in there of contingencies. And the reason there's contingencies in there because we don't have all the details yet. They're still working with us to get our thoughts. That's why you guys are all here now. And we're sharing with them our thoughts as they bring ideas to us. So as both Kim and Erica showed, there's spaces that could be underneath the addition that mechanicals are at, but everything that we add and think about and love about all these spaces all comes with a cost. So it's still yet to be determined, but there are things that we are doing and we're trying to be mindful of the costs because obviously we don't get to print money. We have to rely on our taxpayers to help with some of this, and thank goodness we have that $4.25 million grant and money from the Friends of the Library and a commitment from the City of Dodgeville to help with this project. So going back to property taxes, I'm not going to speculate at this point as to what that might look like, but I will promise you this. I will promise that in the next listening session, which I hope will be next month, I will try and provide you with some better information on what that tax impact might be. And I'm not trying to be elusive. I'm trying to be completely transparent. And that until we have more progress up at the Armory to know what that project might cost, and we zero in a little bit more on what the library might cost, until we do that, we don't know how much money we need to borrow, and therefore won't know exactly how that might impact your property taxes. So again, I'm trying to be completely transparent, and I want to provide you with accurate information. So with that, the last thing I'll mention is, because we don't know in regards to the library exactly where it may fall for cost, we are planning to do some fundraising. So at this point, we don't have all the details figured out, but the library is going to continue to try and fundraise. So please look for information about that, and if there's ways that you can help, we would love it. I think there's some civic organizations that we've done some presentations with already that are looking to step up and provide some additional donations. At this point, I would be out of turn by sharing any information because nothing's been set in stone, but there will be an additional fundraising campaign, and we're going to do our best to try and get more money, more donations for this project, so that we are doing our part in being fiscally responsible in what U.S. citizens are responsible for helping us with getting this project done. So please look for more information about that. The last thing is, before I part, is we're going to kind of finish up here, but we invite you to come up. We purposely wanted to try and get our talking points done and give you time to come up here, and you can stay as long as you want. Max might not want to be here the whole time, but he can stop videotaping back there while you're up here. At this time, are there any just general questions that you have before we kind of get into that maybe everyone would like to hear the answers to? So if you do, feel free to raise your hand. We do have a microphone set up there if there's the ability for you to come there. So I'm going to start over here because I saw this gentleman over here raise his hand first. You might need to check and see if that microphone's working. It is.
My name is Joel Goodman. I live in Dodgeville, and I use the library quite often.
Can you speak a little bit closer to the microphone?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, better, much better, thank you.
Okay. My question and comment is, in no way is this going to cost more money in the beginning of this project. But I noticed your picture to the architects of those solar electric panels when you show the outline of your services. This is a rural town. It has the potential to be a microgrid with renewable energy. So could you show, or if you don't have it prepared now, if you could send it to the library so we can see it, is how many solar electric panels could be in the future, when there is the funding for that, to be installed on your design? Thank you.
Yep. So I'm going to tell you that, we have several building projects going on, as I alluded to. I think it's going to be a worthwhile endeavor to look at the opportunities to put solar panels potentially on the roof of this building. It's just at this time, we haven't had a chance to put everything we want into this project at this point. There are certainly grant dollars available out there for not only public institutions like ours, but certainly other public institutions like the school that we're in right now to look at ways that we can utilize renewable energy. So I will say that we will be looking at that. It's just that this time we haven't had enough time to look at it. I'd also like to look at potentially putting an EV charging station at this location. So those are all things that I think will be considered, but haven't had time to take a breath and look at all these details. Over here we had another question.
I'm just going to shout it.
Yes, you're doing great.
Wondering about the annex. Are you closing that then, or?
So I don't want to speak out of turn, Carrie, and please correct me if I'm wrong when I say this, is that I think in the short term, while we're using a temporary library space up at the Armory, we will still utilize the annex. And obviously, once the new library is set up and ready to go, we will stop utilizing the annex. We will have the space that we need. We're basically going from about 60, I'm rounding 6,500 square feet to 20,000 square feet. So, other general questions that, yes?
What's the bidding environment for construction work right now?
Meaning, are we gonna get lots of people bidding on this project, or?
Construction companies hungry now, or, because the timeline's pretty compressed?
The timeline is pretty compressed. We certainly had conversations with that, and Kevin, I'll allow you to speak to this if you have a better answer, but we talked about that when we were trying to put this all together. There was concerns that if we waited too far into the beginning of the year, that maybe we'd run into a situation where we wouldn't get as many bids. But I think HGA has done a great job in compressing this timeline as best they can, making sure that we still do it correctly and not rush through it, but yet still be cognizant of the fact that we need to get it out to bid in a somewhat timely fashion so that we can address maybe those concerns that you just spoke of.
The only thing I would add, very recent experience, we have a project out for bid right now in Madison and then one in Milwaukee. The project in Milwaukee, we had over 40 bidders show up for a project that's much smaller than this. And the one in Madison, we had probably about 25 to 30 bidders show up and are putting in bids. So one thing we like to do is we'll start calling local contractors as we get a little bit closer to the bid and making sure that the word is out and they know this project is coming. So we'll try to make sure that everyone's aware, but right now we're seeing a bidding climate that seems to be pretty open, and we're optimistic about that right now.
Thanks, Kevin. Other questions? And certainly, I'd love for you to come up here and ask as many questions as you want as you start looking at some of this. Encourage you to stay as long as you like, and we're up here to do our best to answer any questions. But before I close the meeting, anything else? Yes?
Will the new parking lot have as many spaces as the current one?
I believe it'll have more.
It is more, yeah. So we have about 19 now, and we're going up to 23 or 24. So we'll increase some. I think we'll have a little better flow, and then we'll certainly still have the street parking available as well.
So yeah, so to add, did everyone hear that? So we'll go from about, you said what, 19 to 24? 19 to 24. However, if you're familiar with the location down there and where a lot of the staff that work at City Hall park on that small indentation of a parking lot on Union Street, that will also be parking available for the library because obviously we won't be there. City staff won't be there anymore. So there's maybe, I think, 6, 7, 8. So, and then of course, as Kevin just mentioned, we're gonna have parking on the street still, etc. Yes?
Just one more thing. That white arrow there on your picture, that means you're pulling into the parking lot from the main street, Island Street.
Correct.
Now, since you don't live here, you don't see when you come out, you look up north and you see that sloped road.
Yep.
There's big trucks coming down there quite often. It's a very busy big truck street. And I don't think you've got an ideal solution either way. You come into the parking lot from the other side.
Yep.
You need to change your diagonal lines is all. So I guess that would be less dangerous less possibility for you to get into legal problems when the accident happens coming off the truck hitting cars while they're trying to turn into the parking lot. So I think you need to take a careful look at how you get in and out of that parking lot.
So thank you. Did everyone hear what he was mentioning, his concerns of entering off of the way we have it set up right now, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is we have it set up where you're coming in on Iowa Street and you exit on Union Street. We had a lot of conversation, I'll put it that way, about what's best. And should they come in on Union Street and exit out on Iowa? Should they come in on Iowa, exit out on Union? I believe what we came down to is that all of the stalls will be set up not at angles, and that the openings will be wide enough that if we, for whatever reason down the road, decided that we needed to switch something, it probably could be done. Is that correct in saying that? Right. So bottom line is we're cognizant of that. I don't think there is a perfect solution, let's put it that way. And I think that because there's a lot of traffic on Iowa Street, to your point, there's traffic that's coming in and out of Quick Trip there. It's a busy area. And quite frankly, I'm thankful it is a busy area. We want our community to be busy and vibrant and full of things. So I think it's going to be a concern no matter what, but thank you for bringing it up, and I think it's a valid point to consider. Other questions? Yes, sir.
You didn't mention the roofing system, I think?
Okay, so in regards to the new addition, so the existing roof that's on the current building is pitched. The new roof, I believe, is going to be somewhat flat. Do you want to speak to that, Kim?
So we'll be re-shingling parts of the existing roof that we're touching, and then the new roof will be a flat roof with an EPDM roofing system. We're looking at doing a ballast system, which is the rocks on top of the roof, and then doing internal drains. So the insulation on the roof will be tapered towards the drains, so all water will go towards those drains. We'll also have overflow drains, so in the event of an extreme downpour and the drains get clogged, there will be outlets on this new addition roof for water to flow freely out onto the rain gardens around the building. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Thank you, Kim. Anything else? All right, we thank you all for coming tonight. I know it's not a great night out there weather-wise. Please, please, please feel free to come up here and ask any questions. Look at the imagery that we have up here. We couldn't be doing stuff like this in our community without your participation and activation. So please continue to give us your feedback and input, and we will do our best as the city to be as transparent and communicative as possible with all of you. So thank you.